years ago, I went to a party at our Uncle Reggie's house, and a friend of his brought this cake. Now you have to understand that when we go to Reggie's house, I bring the desserts, or they're store-bought desserts. Mark's mom makes cookies. Other than that, well, his aunt makes, it doesn't matter. Usually they're store-bought desserts. And this year was no exception. They were store-bought desserts, some things that I had brought, and then this beautiful caramel cake that I fell in love with, and then made it my mission to come home and find out how to make it. So here's my version of that caramel cake. I'm going to start with cake strips. These are little things to put around your cake pans that will keep them from making a dome shape in your cake. But the first thing we have to do is soak them in water, cold water, and they need to sit there for about 10 minutes. So here they are. Here's my water. We are soaking. All right, then I have 2 sticks of butter, a cup, a third of a cup of vegetable oil, and 2.5 cups of sugar. And I'm going to take this heavy thing and put it on top of those cake strips to force them down into the water. See how that works? Alright, we're going to put this on high. Well, we're going to put it on low first, just to mix it, and then it's going to go up to high for about 5 minutes, or until everything is light and fluffy. So, now that our butter and sugar are light and fluffy, I'm going to add our eggs. I have 6 whole eggs, and they're at room temperature. And then I have 2 egg yolks that are also at room temperature. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the butter is also at room temperature. So I'm going to turn this on low. And then when it incorporates, we're going to turn it up to high, to medium, for about 4 minutes. And while that's working, I am using my pan grease, which there is a video about, but it's a very simple combination of 1 part vegetable oil, 1 part shortening, and 1 part flour. And I'm greasing our pans. And for this particular cake, we're going to use 3 8-inch pans. Now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla and mix again. And while the vanilla is incorporating, I'm going to take 3 cups of cake flour, a half of a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of baking powder. Put those all together. Now we are going to alternate adding the flour and a cup of sour cream. So I'm going to put about half of my flour mixture in. And you don't want to overmix, so just slightly. Then I'm going to put in my my whole cup of sour cream. And then add the half of flour back. it's done. So now what I'm going to do is pour my batter into my 3 prepared cake pans. Well, first, let's stir it and make sure that it's all incorporated, as I do every time I take a bowl out of the mixer. Okay, then we're going to take our cake strips. I'm going to wring them out. You want them wet, but you don't want them soaking. And then we are going to fit them onto our cake pans. Just like that. And they're there. Now I'm just going to evenly distribute the cake batter between the 3 pans. And then we're going to bake these in a 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes, 23 to 25. And then we'll be back. Our cakes took about 35 minutes, but they're out. We're going to let them cool, and then tomorrow we're going to make the frosting. So yesterday we baked our caramel cake, and today we're going to make our caramel icing. This takes about 2 hours, so this is a time-consuming project. I have a saucepan. I have 2 cups of sugar. I have a stick and a half of butter. And then I have 2 cans, of evaporated milk, or 3 cups. It's 2 12-ounce cans, which is also 3 cups. Now what I'm going to do is turn this on medium heat and stir until the butter has melted. And then we're going to turn it down to low, medium low, and let it cook until it turns into caramel. And if you don't have cans of evaporated milk, there's a video of how to make evaporated milk. It's very simple. It's really just heating milk up until the water in it evaporates. So we're on medium heat, and we're just going to wait for the butter to melt and the sugar to dissolve, and then we'll turn it down lower and leave it alone for the most part. We're going to stir about every 15 minutes. But it takes about 2 hours to get to the right consistency and the right color to make your caramel. So you can notice that the butter is fully melted. We're just going to stir it one last time. I'm going to reduce this heat from medium to medium-low, so that's about a 2 on my scale. And I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes, come back and stir it again. So as you can see, our caramel has turned this nice amber color. So we're going to turn the heat off. I'm going to take it off of the heat completely. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Stir that in, and then we're going to let this cool off and thicken up some more for about 30 minutes, and then our caramel icing will be ready. It's now time to ice our caramel cake. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a tiny bit of caramel with my little spatula and put it on my board. Probably need a little bit more than that. This is going to force the cake to stick to the board and not move, so it won't slide around while I'm icing. Very important part. It comes right out of the pan. We're going to put it upside down. Brush away the crumbs. You see how thick that caramel sauce is? We're going to put a thin layer on the cake. I'm going to use that little spatula again to spread it around. See? And we're going to just continue that. There we are. Now, I'm going to slide this in the refrigerator so that the caramel in between can set up before I ice all the way around. So this will be about 15 minutes. So our cake has been chilling in the refrigerator. Now all we have to do is add the remainder of our frosting. So as you can tell, it's thick. It should spread pretty easily. Use my big offset spatula. And just cover the cake in this beautiful caramel frosting. So now that I've made sure that there's caramel covering all of the cake, I have just a little bit more. We're going to put along the sides to make it even. And there you have a traditional Southern caramel cake.